What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 9, The Defiant. Very excited to talk about this episode. I'm miserable. How are you, Mike?
Yeah, you warned me yesterday, Keith, about hockey, and so I thought, I'm going to be a pal. I'm going to go ahead
sure did.
And watch the game as Keith, to cheer for Keith's team, give him a little extra, and it turns out I should have watched to the end because I made a lot of assumptions with 5 minutes left, and I went on to other watchings thinking that I would just celebrate with you today, and then you gave me a text. And then I watched overtime, and probably better if we just don't talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's probably better. It's like it's one of those things where that happens. Then apparently, like a spring hurricane just blows across the country and it flooded my basement.
Oh, yeah.
As well as just life happening. So I say all this not to complain about all of my problems, but to say how grateful I am to be here and talking about this show with you, Mike, and with everybody else here, and to speak, in all seriousness, how Star Trek and this world has always been my home base in times of not feeling great. This has been my safe place, my home base, my space that I feel grace. Wow, I just rhymed out. How about that?
You wrote a song here.
I did. Oh my God! All right, so there it is. Maybe I'll write a little song. So anyway, very excited to get into it.
The camera's picking that up somehow. That's crazy.
Oh, that's really fancy.
Wow.
Mike's fancy ass coffee cups and my super elegant Mountain Dew Zero, which gets me through the day.
Well, Keith, I think I can share now. So over the past 2 weeks, I've been really busy with work, getting this project done, and my mom's, I got to do a bunch of stuff, and I've had all these auditions, which have been kind of exciting because it's been nice to kind of flex those muscles again. I haven't auditioned for things in a while, and that was kind of getting exciting. Some new theaters, some new opportunities, a couple of workshops, got to play my guitar, got to do a bunch of stuff. And over the past 48 hours, it has come to my attention that I didn't book anything, nothing. I got no jobs. So I'm just staring down the barrel of a long summer, and I had turned down a summer job in the event that I got one of these closer jobs. So I've really emptied the tanks, and so I'm really just kind of living it. But you know what? Like you said, I thought last night I was kind of, and I was like, well, guess what? We just started a new show, strange new show, and you can really focus on what you're doing with the channel, and you can focus on work, and you get to spend some time at the pool this summer and tan up, and just, you gotta just embrace what you got and what you don't got.
100%. You know what? Like there's so little in our existence that we can control.
That's true.
And so, like Sisko in the wormhole, right? You can't control what comes out of the wormhole. All you can control is how you react. So, you know what? Our summers are going to be slamming. That's what I have to say.
I'm going to go see some more baseball games. Bryce Harper could be back as soon as tomorrow. That means nothing to you. I don't even know the words I just said. But
I've heard of Bryce Harper.
My Philadelphia 76ers start Game 2 of the NBA playoffs tonight.
I know they're very good at baseball.
Keith, they have the number one, the MVP of the league is on our team. So you would think, we have great. Guess what, Keith? Sprained his knee. He's out.
Yeah. Well, there it is. But you know what didn't sprain its knee?
Nope.
Actually, we don't actually know this, but our patrons are the ones who help us repair our knees, our hearts, and our budgets. Mike, who's patroning the patron?
Oh, wait, your starting lineup for the K&M patrons: Brian K-Bash Kimball, Brian Killer Kaufman, Casey, release the Kraken Clark.
I can't wait for all of these.
Jason Moa.
This is great. We're 4 in.
Don't put me in the friend zone, Bren. Joshua.
What?
Andrew. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. Jorge Supernova. And the mysterious. She's already got one. Worf's big old boot shivs. Richard. I need alliteration. Richard Hot and Coleman. Charles. I used to buy video games at Babbage. Okay, CRM Productions, Nikolai Ivanovich Loachevsky at Grim_Toys. I'll get you guys next week. Delusions at noon. JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, CRM. And of course, we never can, last but never least, Pat.
You know, your friends, when you embark on something that it might be crashing and burning on live YouTube, your friends will hop in and rescue you and divert and save you. But your true friends,
they let you go.
Will watch with delight.
Keith, speaking of, can I take just a little bit of salt and can I just rub it straight in a wound for you?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm pretty raw. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm about to take a present away from you, which is
no.
So,
I like presents.
I can't believe I'm about to tell you this.
Oh, you're such a jerk.
It's true. So we're watching the game last night. Your team, the Boston Bruins, came back and they were losing, and then they tie the game, and then they take the lead, and I'm like, oh my god, this is I'm wrapped up in it.
We're taking the lead with 50 seconds.
And I remember recently we had talked about how no hats fit you, and I was like, you gotta get a good hat, and you're like, I don't want to spend the money on it. So I found you a nice Boston Bruins 5950 flat bill, snapback,
dude.
and I was ready to hit, but I was like, you know what? Let me make sure they win first, and once they win, I'll send it off. And then they lost, and like my Super Bowl jersey in the closet that I don't want to look at, touch, or smell, I was like, I can't send this hat now. I can't.
Well, no, but
next
you know
season.
What? I appreciate the thought, but I don't want your tainted hat.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that shit from me. So
your sad, tainted hat that just brings up trauma.
I think maybe I'll never watch a Boston Bruins game again, and just you don't need my whatever juju I brought was not the right juju.
Believe me, this was not this was not you. The Bruins were not the Bruins the entire series.
I will say this about hockey, and then we have to talk about Star Trek. I know this is a geekly conversation, but you know what I really had appreciated about it's the only professional United States sport, even though I guess it's pretty global, but regardless, they shake hands after the game, even in the most crushing of defeats.
Yeah,
that is not something you see in other sports.
It's one of the best traditions in the NHL is that at the end of the series they have the handshake line. Yeah, so at the end of the series,
really that takes what that takes on a losing side. I can't even imagine
the heartbreak of it. I mean, and it happens every single series in the playoffs. So, you know, when you lose Game 7 in overtime of the Stanley Cup Finals, and before they carry the trophy around, they shake hands and congratulate each other, even if they've been like trying to murder each other for 7 straight games. It's beautiful. It really is.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
It's very Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah,
so you want to know what else?
This week we're going to talk about foes once again having to join forces.
That's right. That's right. So before we do that, we need to shake some hands with last week's episode, Meridian, and talk about the viewer ratings. And I know some of folks, I think, what was it, Jason? You said you clutched your pearls at our crazy low ratings with Meridian last week. And I said this in the comments, but I'll say this to everybody. We are not rating this against all of television. We are rating this against itself.
Yeah.
So it is. So when I gave it a 9 out of 100, it is 9 out of 100 in relation to how good Deep Space Nine gets. Not this is worse than, you know, it's probably still the best thing on television that night. Don't get me wrong. So
it also feels heavily influenced by our mood at that current second.
1,000,000%. Guess what? It's not scientific. It's actually just.
However, it's not scientific, but I'm saying it right here on the internet. It is definitive.
It is definitive. Yes. The podcast, the lowest ranked Deep Space Nine podcast in all of Deep Space Nine podcasts, definitive rankings. However, we got a bunch of rankings from you, and maybe you can help our cumulative average. Jason Moe gives it a 62. Joshua Cronin gives it a 67. Nobody got above a D, let's be honest. JD gives it a 50. John McWhat gives it a 40. And Delusions at Noon coming in with the super tip on your rating, which means I read your comment. That's the rules.
I like his style. He used to do his diatribes on the Patreon, but then once you establish the precedent that we read for a tip, now he's like, oh, you're gonna read it.
We'll do more than that for a tip. But let me but actually, like, this is some terrific analysis. Yeah. So buckle up.
This is about to be the best part of the podcast.
Definitely. So Delusion says, I give this one a 40. Rather higher than you guys, but there's no denying it was a bad episode. Such a weird decision to focus on a character we've never seen before and won't see again, thankfully. That was me. Even weirder to name the character Dax and have Terry Farrell play her, even though she clearly has no relation to the character we already know with that name, making decisions and behaving in ways that are completely unlike her namesake. Just inexplicable storytelling choices in just about every regard. Couldn't have put it better.
Yeah.
I'm slightly more positive on the episode than you guys for two reasons. First, while I absolutely agree the B story totally fails to recognize the true moral gravity of its scenario, for me, it managed to hit most of its intended comic beats pretty successfully, and I got a couple of hearty chuckles out of it. A laugh is a laugh, even if achieved through a rather skeevy means. Secondly, I found myself moved by how valiantly the direction and acting in this episode tried to transcend the material. There are bad episodes I'd rank lower, even though they have scripts that are merely mediocre instead of outright awful, precisely because they feel like the cast and crew were just going through the motions. The companions behind the scenes info confirms pretty much everyone knew this was a dog when they were working on it, and it feels like Frakes guided everyone to go above and beyond in a hopeless attempt to rescue the material. And it almost works in a couple of instances. The farewell scene between Sisko and Dax is wholly fraudulent on a dramatic level, and yet it still moved me because Brooks makes you totally believe Sisko's sincerity. There's something strangely compelling to me about seeing talented people grapple intelligently with impossible material, so while it's sort of a meta reason for not entirely disliking the A story that's divorced from its non-existent dramatic virtues, it's enough to hold on to that it keeps this dud from ranking in my bottom 5 and maybe even in the bottom 10. That is so well put.
Yeah.
And you know, being an actor in New York for a long time and doing a tremendous amount of readings of new shows and new musicals, trying to sell something that's not working is a remarkable part of your existence. It's your job. It's your whatever. And I think that the actors whom I respect the most will absolutely, you know, they're not going to try to fix it, but they're going to perform something with the gravity and the weight and the honesty, regardless of whether it makes any sense and regardless of whether the material is good.
You know, something we never really talk about on many of our shows, which you're kind of waxing right there, reminded me of, is that often when you're in a play or even in a movie, I would imagine, I haven't done many of those, or commercial or something, you're really relying heavily on what you've been given in the script by the writer, who clearly knows the characters the best because they wrote them, and also the director and the production crew because they have a vision for what they're trying to produce. However, at a certain point in a long-running series, and I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting there in this series, it sort of flips over, and the actors who have been inhabiting these characters and who have been adding mannerisms and motivations and relationships with other characters actually start to know the characters better than those writing them. And I imagine when you're presented with a script or a series of scripts or an arc that you just internally do not gel with, that becomes challenging. And I would hope that the writers trust the actors enough to allow that input and allow maybe some adjustments based on what they're thinking. But thankfully we have the companion to help us know that for this show.
The smart writers use the actors as resources, not as chess pieces. And I think that is, certainly something that this cast was very much capable of being a resource to the writers. And I'll just finish with what they said in the companion and what Delusions was talking about. From the part of Frakes and from the part of the actors, what you see there is professionalism. They are professionally doing the best they can with whatever is handed to them, and those are the type of people you want to work with. So anyway, everybody's average comes out to 51.8. So my rating was a 9, yours was a 30, Jen gave it an 87, and I believe our winner is still Mike at 30, the closest to the communal average.
So Keith, got a 51.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could officially say it's not half bad.
That's true. It's not fully half bad.
Come on. Pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with that.
You're welcome, Internet. All right, what do you say we talk about a much better episode, Defiant, which aired on November 21st, 1994. The top song, would you believe? Frankly, I'm surprised there wasn't a second baby boom a year after this episode aired, because the top song continued to be, Michael.
Yeah, this was my personal version. Ready? I'll make love to you if you want me to. Oh, what's that? Oh, you don't want me to? Oh, okay then.
Yeah, good night. Good night. Have a great night. I'll
Take
see
care
you
of
later.
yourself.
Okay, very good. Very good. However, guess what, folks? The top movie, it's a big one. The top movie this week was Star Trek Generations.
That was the
first next-gen movie. We have the poster. Everyone stop and... remember?
Yeah.
Yep.
Keith, would you... it's interesting while I pull this up, actually. Man, you've got me saying it's interesting now all the time. That Frakes guest stars this week. Pretty... Get the next gen cast back in the the whole thing.
Yeah, he was a busy guy. Frakes was, although this filmed well before it aired. So there is Star Trek Generations, the crossover from the original series movies, handing it off to our heroes from Star Trek Next Generation. This was the first movie that my uncle worked on. Did fabulous work. This poster is hanging up in his studio.
That's cool.
Very exciting. This movie made $23 million and killed off some important folks, and did a it's not everybody's favorite next gen movie, but I think there's a lot there to like. So certainly a consequential film. So big Star Trek week. You had a lot to go. I remember I went to go see this in the theaters. I think I told the story last week about finding the place with better than stereo sound to go see it. But it should not surprise anybody. I was a little hyped for this one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Did you go
in costume, Keith?
So no, I did not go dressed up. In 1994, I had discovered in the middle school experience, what's this word? Shame. And I was mercilessly bullied for going to a costume convention in 1991 and ending up in the newspaper, the picture of which you can see in the intro to Look at My Star Trek Toys. Didn't do a lot for my popularity in school, but I was still really excited to go. So if you ever want to know how to make a Starfleet uniform, 2 turtlenecks, a red one and a black one,
back in time,
and pull it over the shoulders.
You could go back in time and tell all of them, I'm going to have the world's leading Star Trek podcast empire in mere decades.
Well, if I could tell them that would be great.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Well, Keith, it's possible.
We've got to be in the top 100 of Deep Space Nine reviews.
Due to maybe some sort of a transporter incident, perhaps you could have bifurcated timelines, and in one of those, we have a really successful pod.
Well, I mean, look, in the multiverse, there is definitely a version of this show, which, you know what, in the multiverse, there's a version of our show that is the #1 show in all of television.
And they're already talking about the episode.
People...
in that version.
Oh my God. Yes, no, we're... All right,
they didn't
anyway.
do a Stanley Cup lead-in.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Bruins won in that version, right, too. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so I know everybody here was going to go see Star Trek Generations this weekend. We weren't watching TV, but if you were that weirdo who wasn't going to see Generations in the theater, what were they watching on TV?
Well, Keith, they would have been at least excited that their New York Football Giants beat the then Houston Oilers 13-10, high-scoring affair. The normal stuff on CBS. You had The Nanny, When You Pish Upon a Star was the name of that one. PISH, which...
I imagine it evaporates before it hits it.
Dave's World was still rocking and rolling.
Murphy, wait. I'm sorry. Is Dave here?
Yeah, Dave's in. Hold on. No. The episode was
called... Oh, wait, no. Come on. You gotta give us your flawless Dave.
Why do you think I have a Dave? Is that an anecdote I should remember?
No, you just... You do your... It always makes me laugh when you do your impression.
That wasn't... I didn't do a Dave. The impression that made you laugh was I was doing George Lucas.
No. No.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Dave, and this week's episode was called The Donor Party. Surprisingly, my Dave is also my Murphy Brown. This is Murphy Brown, and this week it was Bye Benecki. The Nanny was also... The Nanny was... I am very bad at impressions, we've discovered.
It's so good. Flawless. Fran, are you here?
Yeah, nothing really was on. Because Mommy Works was the NBC movie.
They didn't want to compete with Star Trek Generations.
No, but I'm always curious who the SNL
who hosted SNL? Should have been Patrick Stewart if they were smart.
John Turturro with Tom Petty. Tom Petty was okay. That's pretty good. I'd like to go back and check that out. So there you go. TV not. You know what? TV sucked. Go see Generations in the movies if you go back in time.
That's right. If you have a time machine, don't go back and change history.
No,
don't make a lot of money.
Effect. You can't do that. You got to just go to the movies.
All right, fair enough. Well, it seems very expensive just to watch the movies.
Got it down.
All right, so let's talk about Defiant. Please, for the love of God, I hear you. We have an episode. Oh, wait. No, let's not talk about Defiant. We talk about the hardcore news from the Weekly World News headline.
Big time.
This week, here we are. Can you believe that she was with us until literally a couple of months ago? Queen Elizabeth's secret diaries about her secret love affair with a U.S. senator. And made a $10 million offer to Prince Charles's mistress, who, spoiler alert, is now the queen. And she slapped Princess Di. Oof.
Also, she had a 20-year fight against shopping addiction.
Yeah, we all have it. She has Prime. That's the problem.
Yeah. I have about 12 packages showing up today.
Yeah. I have new glasses coming today.
That's
I'm very excited.
I got an AirTag, Keith. Did I tell you that? That's a geeky topic.
Why?
Because I can't lose my wallet one more time. I can't do it.
You've lost your wallet?
I never officially lose it. I just misplace it, and for days I cannot relocate it.
Wait, so in your house or out of your house you lose your wallet?
Combination of the factors. Combination of the two.
Okay. You should probably AirTag your cats, too, while you're at it.
No, my cats are good. I like my cats.
No, they're not. They run around all over the place.
That's true.
All right. So, Defiant, for the love of God. Defiant was directed by Cliff Bole, who last directed Equilibrium, and has a teleplay by Ronald D. Moore, who last wrote The House of Quark, and, just like Frakes, he also freaking wrote Generations.
Oh.
So, he had an episode of television that he wrote dropping the same weekend as a feature film that he wrote. Pretty good week for royalties for Ronald D. Moore. What do you say we get into something trivial, Mike?
Yeah, but I have some big trivia that you don't know about, Keith.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, do you know that because of the content of this episode, the viewers don't know it, but at the halfway point the halfway point of this episode, which God knows when that is, I'm going to make us pause and go shave half our beards into a goatee.
Great. Well, my playoff beard isn't necessary anymore. With trivial trivia. Oh, okay. Trivial trivia. Number 1. Guest stars Shannon Cochran and Michael Canavan would later marry in real life after meeting on this episode.
Oh. Showmance.
Should have been the last episode. That was the romantic one. Huh, but, cool. Sometimes stealing a ship gets the heart going aflutter.
They get a lot of lines, too. This is a great guest spots for them.
They don't speak hardly at all.
They speak quite a bit. I'm guessing they're the crew of Tom's ship. Yeah, they have a lot of lines.
All right.
They're not consequential, but...
No, but they're there. The giant Cardassian view screen that we see them communicating with is actually a miniature, which is really cool. So that's a miniature that they blue screened Sisko in front of. So cool. It was seamless. I did not notice that it was a miniature. Katila was the character of Katila, played by Shannon Cochran, was also in the Next Generation episode Preemptive Strike, a season 7 episode we should watch at some point. But as a member of the Maquis, we've seen her before.
That reminds me. I meant to, in the beginning of this episode, but we got to start talking about sports. I wanted to thank you, Keith. What incredible foresight to have me on the Patreon watching that episode of Next Gen. It made me kind of wonder, if you hadn't seen that episode and you're just watching this, you're sort of like, what the hell is going on? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a method to my madness occasionally.
You'd think I would have figured it out before the reveal, but I didn't. I really just thought.
I'm glad. I was really excited to ask about the reveal, whether or not you clocked it. But so cool, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
All right. So Trisha O'Neill, who plays the Cardassian overseer, also played Rachel Garrett in yesterday's Enterprise, which is my all-time favorite Next Generation episode, and possibly my favorite episode of Star Trek. Period.
Wow.
So I remember when that first came out, I lost my friggin' mind on my grandparents' carpet watching it.
At least that's all you lost on your grandparents' carpet.
Ew. I was 8. All right. Anyway, so
didn't we talk about Big Mouth this week?
8, not 12.
Late bloomer.
Ugh, gross. Ugh. All right. She also played Kurak in the episode Suspicions, so a frequent guest on Star Trek. Frakes directed the previous episode and then acted in this one, so he just hung around for a couple of weeks in the Deep Space Nine verse, wearing different hats. And this episode, speaking of Star Trek Generations, takes place right before Generations. Otherwise, what happened there would have been referenced. And lastly, further updates were made to the Defiant the bridge in terms of paint scheme and lighting at the request of DP Jonathan West. So they are continuing to tinker with the bridge of the Defiant. This is where we would do What Was Voyager Doing? Voyager is ramping up. They are showing ads for the series premiere of Voyager. Do you remember what that aired on? What Voyager aired on?
UPN, one of those?
It was on UPN. It was the first Star Trek series not since the original series not to be syndicated. So
and that's Janeway, right? Voyager?
That was Janeway.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the flagship show of UPN as they were sort of launching the network.
I watched at least a few episodes of Voyager here and there for various reasons over the years. Deep Space Nine, I had never watched a single episode, not a one.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to go looking for it because it was syndicated.
Right.
And for me, because I was living out in the boonies, we didn't have cable. You clocked what was syndicated because there's only 3 or 4 channels, and so you sort of noticed everything. But I imagine if you had cable, like you'd be like, it's on at a weird time. Like, how would you even know? All right, so the guest stars of Defiant include, of course, Mark Alaimo back as Dukat. Welcome back, sir. Trisha O'Neill as Carinas. Shannon Cochran as Kalita. Robert Kerback as the Cardassian soldier. Michael Kahneman as Tamal. And, of course, Jonathan friggin' Frakes playing Riker. Which version? We'll find out as we go.
Yeah, this episode is exciting because it's establishing the show's ability and willingness to hop between the worlds of serialized content and also arc-based content.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, we're back in the mainline storytelling of this season of where we're going, and if you haven't been paying attention, or if you've only been pipping and popping, you're not going to really know what the hell's going on, which is pretty different than a lot of the television series that you would see at this time.
Certainly Trek up until this point, definitely. And this episode, I think not surprisingly, has some wider ranging consequences for stuff moving forward. So it's important for a couple of different levels.
I also I don't recall. Well, we can talk about this later. Let's get going.
All right. Well, why don't we hop into the screening room and talk about Defiant?
I caught myself doing this week when I was watching along.
I mean, it's gonna be with you forever.
Make love to you, Kira.
Can't
if
wait.
You ask me to,
Kira,
or even if you don't ask me to, if I'm Riker.
Wait, I'm sorry?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like Riker's didn't really. There's a lot of that last scene here. Really loving everything up until that last second.
Oh yes, the non-consensual kiss.
That was real weird. But
That wasn't great. Well, that was very Kirky.
yeah, it was very Kirky. That's a good point.
Okay, so we begin in the teaser. Kira is having a rough day. The station is busy, and everyone wants a piece of her. Not that way, Mike. Dax and O'Brien are keep piling more work on. And Bashir wants a runabout, and it's too much. Kira snaps at him. So Bashir, using his medical authority, forces her off duty. For her stress and exhaustion, he prescribes a drink at Quark's. And he insists that she enjoy herself by doing a bunch of things he and we already know she doesn't like.
Yeah.
Quarks, holosuites, and gambling.
It was weird.
It's totally weird. Like it's like when the friend gives you a present, like you know for sure you've already told them you don't want.
The whole teaser actually felt a little unnecessary. Like she doesn't actually go on leave, and then it's in whatever.
Well, I mean we're setting up the obvious. You know, she's got some time off. She's got to relax, and what better than
nobody gets time off. And if you've been sanctioned for leave, there's a plot coming your way.
Well, but that's a Star Trek trope, as well as all of our heroes refuse to take any time off, except for Riker, actually. But they all that's Riker mentions that he was also forced to stop working, so everyone's a workaholic. But the night turns interesting when Riker shows up, and we all gasp.
I literally gasped.
I want to watch the reveals on Mike watches Deep Space Nine.
I'm some would say dramatic.
What? Hard to imagine. Patreon.com/KNM.
I was pretty stoned
you can watch
last night too, and tired.
Great. I'm sure that was an adventure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Patreon.com/KNM if you want to see whatever that is. So in Act 1, Sisko meets with Riker and asks him, what's it there for?
We should announce it on the mainline show because people watch Star Trek. You know, not only that, but over on patreon.com, Keith and I watched the pilot episode of Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds?
Or plural.
Worlds.
Yeah, Strange New Worlds. The Paramount Plus. So if you want to see Keith and I's first reactions to both of us first watching it, check that out. And get excited because Strange New Show coming your way in your feed as early as next week.
Possibly. Yep. Yes. We're going to do this with Strange New World.
I got nothing better to do.
Yeah, well, there it is. Well, we buried the lead. We should have said that earlier. But, whatever.
This is what makes us
professionals.
Yeah.
So I can talk about professionalism before? There it is.
Or as Ben would say, we dropped the ball, Keith.
He doesn't drop that ball.
No.
He catches that ball. So it turns out Riker has 3 months of leave, and he is here to partay.
Yeah. He's like, I want to bang chicks. I want to get drunk. And I want to party. He literally said, well, I mean, maybe not literally, but basically.
But that's Riker, right? Riker's he's a after season 1, he's a man who enjoys
I want to have
fun.
Drinks. I want to play sax. I want to have sex.
That's right. So he's just passing through on his way to Risa. Do you know about Risa, Mike?
I'm Risa in right now, Keith. Wait, did you do that? Yes. Oh, you did? Well, you can't trigger me like that. You winked out before. Oh, we're children.
Yeah, so Risa is sort of the Federation like orgy planet. So it basically
Someone say orgy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically you just go to Risa and remember the Horgon I told you about?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So you just put the Horgon down and then you done do it kind of everywhere, and everyone on Risa are like, yeah, all right.
You get your lobes fondled?
You get your lobes, you get anything you want. So
all right.
So naturally, Riker enjoys going there. So, yeah. But he's stopping here for a second because Quark owes him money, and he's got a date with a Dabo girl. He had a very busy visit.
Mm-hmm.
So on Ops, Dax and Kira talk about Riker. Dax knows him already from when he was here last year. Dax can tell something is up with Kira, and Kira admits that she and Riker talked for 3 hours last night. But she's involved with somebody. She's involved with, remember Bareil?
Yeah, the Pope?
Yeah. Well, no, he's not the Pope.
I mean, he's like, wanted to be Pope.
He wanted to be the Pope, but now there's an evil Pope. Anyway, Dax can tell she's still smitten, the Bareil of it aside. So
all of that, remember, any chemistry that might be between them happened off camera.
Yeah, well, we're gonna see a little bit more of it later.
I guess.
There's a heck of a lot. You want to talk about chemistry? It's a hell of a lot more chemistry than last week.
Oh yes, I'm just saying it's weird that they didn't. The whole teaser scene should have been that rather than just like I'm overworked, because then at least it would have given some context to everything that happens. But whatever.
That's true. Well, but they structurally they wanted to end the teaser with the first appearance of Riker. Yeah, so there it is. Sometimes
also, them having physical chemistry adds nothing to the plot, but TV. Okay.
No, I think it's fun because it's kind of it is a little bit of like a fanfic there. What if Kira hooked up with Riker?
Yeah, okay. And I guess knowing that Riker's kind of a ladies' man throughout the next gen is helpful. But if you don't know that, like I didn't really know that, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. But I guess having watched that episode, that was helpful.
That was because he has sort of a on again, off again, open relationship with Troy, so she's fine with it. She gets it. So who knows? So Riker and Sisko come out, and Dax reminds him that he owes her money. He doesn't remember for a bit, but then he covers. It's odd to see Riker in the next gen uniform, but with the updated communicator pin, which this is also something in Generations. So to just have like little uniform corner.
Well, hold on. This is a good screenshot. Before we do uniform corner, let's go up to down. Let's start up. Let's look at that screenshot. Are those mutton chops? Are those pasted on mutton chops, or did he shave for that cut?
I think he shaved. He shaved right before.
So you're telling me this is a beard, an actual beard? Someone trimmed that perfect U.
It's Star Trek. Trimming the weird beard and the triangles on the on your whatever. That's the whole thing.
I buy it.
Riker doesn't usually have such a low swoop.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a little odd.
It's a little more Nike. He's telling Kira to just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, yeah. There it is. Anyway, Uniform Corner. In Generations, we've talked about it a lot on the Toys show, but they had originally planned to do completely new uniforms for the next gen cast for Generations. For many different reasons, they didn't pan out. And even though Playmates released an entire line of toys with the characters wearing these unused uniforms, what happens in the movie Generations is it's kind of weird and abrupt, and it doesn't make any sense. But as the movie goes on, one by one, the characters from Next Gen transition from the regular Next Gen uniforms to the Deep Space Nine jumpsuits. And so by the end of Generations, everybody's wearing the Deep Space Nine era jumpsuits, and not the Next Gen. Why they didn't make that decision all at once? It was weird. It was a little chaotic in the producing. But this is the first time we're using the updated communicator pins that we saw at the beginning of this season. So this is the first time we've ever going to see Riker wearing that communicator pin, even though he's wearing the old style Next Generation uniform. So there it is. These they would only ever wear the Deep Space Nine era uniforms for Generations. That's it. I had one other thing, but I lost it. I'll find it later. So, later.
Meet cute.
Kira literally bumps into Riker on the promenade. And they pretend they're not going to hang for a bit, but they're going to hang. She asks him if he wants to go for a tour, and he says, yeah, let me see the Defiant.
Yeah, let me see those big guns shooting off.
Another trope on Deep Space Nine. If you literally bump into somebody on the promenade, chances are he's a secret bad guy.
Keith, wormhole alert.
Okay.
I'm going to plant the seed now. We'll talk about it later.
Uh-huh.
We always talk about the security. Depending on what time of day it is, there's either so much security on Deep Space Nine or none at all, right? We always find these huge holes in security or whatnot. I know a little bit later in the episode, they're gonna be like, oh, where is everybody? Who's on the Maquis or whatnot? Or not the Maquis, who's on the Defiant? You would think, with security clearances being as they are, the second someone beep boop beeps into the Defiant, the biggest, what we've come to learn, like the biggest warship in the quadrant,
right?
Like someone would get a red light would beep, like Odo or Ops or something would be like, hey, somebody's on the Defiant, just to let you know. Here's closed circuit.
I mean, but
she's a somebody.
They're both they are both every bit allowed to be on it. O'Brien's already there doing maintenance. Like,
I didn't
people
say
are
that they're
going
not
on and
allowed
off the
to be
ship all
on
the
it.
time.
I didn't say that they're not allowed to be on it, but there should be instant record that somebody's on it to protect the weapons. And because when they go looking for them, they're like, where are they?
Well, I'm sure there is a record of it, but I think it would only flag people if unauthorized people went onto it. Okay. Like if somebody went on without it, then of course I'm sure Odo would get a beep or Sisko would. But they're perfectly legit.
Well,
people
after this episode, Keith, I'm going to imagine that they're getting a beep every time somebody goes on there.
Yeah, they're probably going to be a little more careful.
So before you start, pish-poshing my security audit, you should know that I'm right.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. All right. Can't argue with that. So,
did you like that callback? Do you notice I used the word pish, which was a callback to what was on TV? Okay, let's keep going.
When you pish upon a star? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's better than electric fence, but probably not great. All right, so, where am I? So they walk to the docking ring, and they both identify themselves to access the ship. Turns out, O'Brien is already working on there, and Riker is clearly pissed at him, but I'm not sure why, other than to get rid of him.
I was going to ask you, did something happen? O'Brien wasn't on that episode, right?
He was there. He might have been.
My assumption, what I read into it, and I this was just Mike made this up, was if I'm not mistaken, O'Brien was in charge of transport beam.
Right.
So I figured maybe O'Brien was helming the beam when the mishap happened and he got trapped on the planet and that kind of ruined his life. So maybe he blames O'Brien for it.
That would make sense. But
because he is pissed.
He's super pissed. And if O'Brien had been the one who left him there, I get it. But I don't think he was.
Something happened because O'Brien
was on the Rutledge at that point.
It's also O'Brien's response to it. He's not like, what the F? He's sort of accepting of it. So clearly it's a mutual, he knows what Riker's pissed about.
Viewers, smarter viewers, who knows, just tell us.
This is what it's come to. Our show is just us asking for help.
Absolutely.
100%.
So we're like car talk, but the other way around.
Yeah.
We're just like, hey, my car broke. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway.
Also, if you're, bad Tom Riker, if you're trying to play a part and be under the radar, then you should probably keep your I'm pissed at you. This is a huge tell. In fact, I thought later in the episode, I'm like, I wonder why that wasn't, O'Brien wasn't the one who figured it out or something. It's just a weird beat.
Well, I mean, yes. Although I think if you flip it around, being weirdly antagonistic with somebody that in a way that they don't understand is a good way to make them go away.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he needed to get rid of him.
You're right.
At that point.
Prime directive here is get Kira alone on the ship, just them.
Right.
Yeah.
So but it feels oddly personal at the same time. So because there would have been a different way to do it. Anyway, O'Brien leaves, but is somewhat confused. Riker is curious about all the tactical systems, but they're locked out. But of course, they're locked out because of higher level security. So getting onto the ship isn't enough. You have to have the password even just to enable the tactical. But Kira, not a problem. Turns it on immediately for him. And he immediately shoots her with a phaser and beams on two vest enthusiasts. And on ops, the alarm goes off. There's your alarm.
Mm-hmm.
The Defiant is about to blow up. Riker calls and says, "Release the clamps so I can get the Defiant away from the station." Oh boy, they've created this whole ruse, and as soon as he does, the Defiant raises shields and pieces out.
At this point, you know what I'm thinking, Keith? I'm thinking he's a Jem'Hadar.
A changeling.
Yes, or I'm sorry, a founder.
Founder, right. Yeah, no, totally. And that would make perfect sense. So as soon as he does, the Defiant raises shields and pieces out. And on the ship, Riker and his vest buddies head off for the Badlands. Riker then removes his sideburns, revealing just a goatee. Guys, it's Thomas Riker, Will's evil twin.
We're just not going to mention the jean jacket?
I called her a vest enthusiast.
Oh, okay. I thought, okay. Well, noted. Touche.
Wow. So, obviously, goatee means evil. Mm-hmm. I was clearly evil through much of college.
Yeah.
But, guys, it was the 90s, okay?
Keith was hashtag Vincent Price lookalike.
I was hashtag lots of things. So, in Act 2, Odo and Sisko fill in the backstory to Dukat, who is there drinking Kanar. Dukat asks why I should care about that episode of Next Gen. I'm not on Next Gen. Sisko announces that they believe Thomas Riker is a member of the Maquis, and now he has the Federation's most powerful warship. And that, of course, elicits that Dukat look of concern. There's nothing... There's nobody on the show better than the surprised oh shit face than Mark Alaimo as Dukat.
So where in the series was that TNG episode we watched? I can't remember. Was it season 5 or something?
It was either 5 or 6.
So it was late in the run.
It was late in the run, yes.
So I remember thinking at the end of it, I'm like, wow, they're just going to have 2 Rikers in the universe, right? This is kind of a fun way to potentially tie that loophole up. We'll get there.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned on the episode that we did, the bonus Patreon exclusive content of us watching Second Chances. But there was some talk at that point to actually kill off Riker.
Main Riker.
and replace him with Thomas Riker as a lieutenant.
Huh.
And promote Data to first officer, I think was the plan. Which is an odd choice. It would have been bold, though. It certainly would have been like, oh, wow.
Very sci-fi, yeah.
Very sci-fi. So Second Chances aired on May 22nd, 1993. So this was in Deep Space Nine's first season, I think, when this aired. And that was season 6 of Next Gen. Anyway, where are we? Dukat. He is concerned because the Central Command is definitely going to send ships to find the Defiant. Sisko understands, and asks that any operation be a joint one. Dukat warns that the Cardassian government isn't going to buy any of it. The secret twin, blah, 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 none of it. And they're going to use this as an excuse to wipe out the Maquis once and for all. Dukat knows this is likely going to start a new war between the Federation and Cardassia. And he asks for a gesture of good faith. So Sisko offers to come along and assist. He helped design the Defiant, so he knows its weaknesses. Very key. On the ship, Kira confronts Tom about his deceit. He asks him how far he thinks he can get.
I'm sorry, I just took so many screenshots because Mark Limo is so captivating. Damn, look how cool that is. This one I want a poster of. Ready for it? Hold on.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. Just the face. The framings are great.
The two of them together. Yeah. I mean, just it's so much fun to see Dukat and Sisko together because those two actors have so much gravitas and so much, like, whether or not they're being evil or not, they're so charming and so watchable.
Well, and this is why, like, already there's so much texture in this episode because, listen, last time Dukat and Sisko were together, they formed sort of an unholy alliance to deal with the minutia in the grand scheme of the two, like the Federation and the Cardassia High Command and all that stuff. And they're kind of working at the minutia level against the Maquis. And here we are again, but sandwiched between these two buddy cops is that whole scene or that whole episode where Dukat's on the ship throwing Ben's baseball on the floor and trying to, basically screw them over. So and bring troops in. So there's so much here. There's already so much texture that I'm so invested.
Well, that's why I've always said that Dukat is one of the most interesting characters on the series because he's incredibly complex, and he's not entirely evil, and he's definitely not entirely good, and he is.
And we talk about his hubris all the time, and you'd think after the last episode, right, where he sort of got, what's the word, put in his place that was High Command, right?
Right.
That he would start kind of continuing to sniff around and stop thinking that he's aware of everything going on. But once again, this episode, he finds out that there's always more going on than he's abreast of, and he just can't get ahead of it.
But always, I mean, a true narcissist, which he is, never learns. It's part of the disorder. Is that and we see it with certain well-tanned political figures who like literally cannot feel shame, cannot learn, cannot be, cannot change their behavior. It is just inherent in who they are. And I think Dukat is a great example of that. Fascinating. So, so on the ship. No, we did that. So,
Bon Jovi's there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they rendezvous with some other Maquis ships, and they all head towards the Cardassian border. So in Act 3, Dukat and Sisko have arrived on Cardassia Prime. Dukat takes him to a really fancy war room where he can control the other ships. A woman enters, who is an observer from the Obsidian Order, who is there to make sure that Sisko doesn't see anything classified. Really interesting that the Cardassian military and the Obsidian Order are very separate entities, and who's really in charge is pretty unclear at this point. But Sisko understands, and she demands that he tell them all about the Defiant's weapons. And he admits that the Defiant has a cloaking device, which, as we've mentioned before, Federation does not have any cloaking devices. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of big news, but she already knows. Mm-hmm. And Dukat is furious that he doesn't. So, not sharing all the information between the Cardassian military and the Obsidian Order. But Sisko tells him that the Dominion found a way to detect the cloaked ship with a proton beam. Meanwhile, Kira tries to find a way to break out of her quarters. Dukat and the Cardassians detect the Defiant and move to intercept, but Sisko smells a rat because the Defiant isn't cloaked. That's weird. It attacks an outpost and moves away, and Sisko realizes it's a fake. And it's a feint. It's not really a Defiant. And so that's the miniature. Actually, go back to. And you can see there, that is a green-screened Sisko in front of the miniature of the thing with the digital overlay on it. That is it's like 3 layers of composite there. It looks terrific. Never would have noticed. Never in a million years. And again, 1994 television. Good. That's pretty good stuff. Another Defiant emerges and attacks a different outpost. It's bobbing and weaving and heading into deep Cardassian territory. The Obsidian observer compliments Sisko and insults Dukat. On the Defiant, Riker adjusts the cloaking device so it can't be detected again when 2 plasma conduits blow up. Kira's sabotage campaign has begun. In Act 4, Riker compliments Kira on her sabotage. He asks why she's trying to stop him from attacking Cardassians, and they debate Maquis politics. The whole Maquis of it all, I'm still a little bit lost as to exactly what's going on there. I need to rewatch some of the next-gen Maquis episodes as well, because the whole politics of this, like, they all talk about it like it makes perfect sense, and it just doesn't to me.
I guess the way I've kind of looked at it is, just like, we understand Kira's terrorism, right? She was a Bajoran, she was fighting against occupiers.
100%.
And so I guess the idea is that, in this neutral zone or demilitarized zone that, they've just left to these kind of colonists, and they're being treated badly, and they're not getting any help from they're the what's the word I'm looking for? The collateral damage in this what's the word?
Treaty.
In the treaty that we kind of took an L on, but it's a political win because it looks like we did something, but really we left these people out to dry.
Well, and we stopped a war. Yeah.
So I think that, it makes sense in that regard, but it seems like why Riker or anybody really gives.
Well, I understand completely why the people who were screwed by the treaty are doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, their motivations, like, I get it. They're fighting the Cardassians who are sort of occupying their space. They're mad at the Federation because the Federation didn't protect them. That all makes perfect sense. What Star Trek, what multiple series, actually 3 series, are going to try to reinforce the moral ambiguity of this. Mm-hmm. That the Maquis might be sort of good guys and sort of bad guys, and we're not sure.
Oh.
That's the part that I don't quite get.
Well, I guess that's the method to their madness, right? It's like and yes, I hear what you're saying. It's clear as mud. So that makes sense. But I guess, even I don't want to go that far, but I guess is there a difference between murdering innocent people, quote unquote innocent people, if they are you just attribute them to being bad guys? I guess the point is they're not always executing military targets, right? They're just kind of creating.
No, but I think they are, though, and that that thing is true. They are attacking military targets, not civilian targets, and so that certainly changes
that's kind of
the
Kira's
moral
point
equation
later,
a great
right?
deal.
that's Kira's point later when she's like, if you were an actual terrorist, if you were actual McKee, you'd be just killing as many, you'd be doing as much damage as possible.
Be much more ruthless.
But he's trying,
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell. This conversation really went nowhere. Okay.
No, well, it's us. So Sisko and Dukat are stumped. They can't find the Defiant, and Dukat is distracted.
What plot-wise, at least, what was a little confusing to me here too is, what is she trying to reason with him? She doesn't know him from Adam, and he's trying to steal this ship and like do bad stuff, whatever the specifics are, not even important, but yet she's trying to convince him that he's some hero, or that it's very confusing.
Well, no, because I mean, she knows him. They've at least talked for like 5 hours. Mm-hmm. She knows that Riker's a Starfleet officer, right? And knows that even though this isn't Will Riker, she knows of Will Riker's reputation and knows of his reputation previous to that. So knows that he's a good guy, and not necessarily mustache twirling evil. And so there's a part of him that doesn't want to do anything bad. So they're just arguing what is the definition of bad in the situation. Mm-hmm. So I get what she's trying to do. She's trying to get him to surrender and give the ship back, and she's appealing to his sense of honor to do that. So they can't find the Defiant, but Dukat is distracted. It's his son's 11th birthday, and he promised to take him to Disney World, but is going to have to break the promise yet again. Sisko empathizes. He has to do the same thing with Jake, but Dukat is more serious, realizing that this is only going to make his son hate the Federation. I think the most interesting conversation in this episode here, and an interesting layer of vulnerability for Dukat here.
Well, I think it's more than interesting. It's a huge crack wide open into his brain space, because we will continue, I guess, to debate whether he's an antagonist or a protagonist. It's nice to at least know that foundationally, it seems clear to me that his ultimate hope is that at some point both sides can trust one another, because it's clear he wants his son not to hate the Federation. He wants him to. He's hoping for his son to have some sort of universal respect or love, and that they can't we all just get along, which is not something a like you said, a mustache twirling villain would want.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously loves his son, and I do think he's being genuine here. I don't think he's making this up. He loves his son. He doesn't want his son to hate the Federation. There's a part of him that wants peace. I think his eternal character flaw is that he loves himself more than any of those things. And that's always going to be what takes him over. So on the Defiant, they fix the cloak, but have a small neutrino leak they hope won't give them away. Kira asks why they're heading to a shipyard. There are much better targets all over the place. And Riker says, I just want to keep them guessing. The Maquis has heard that there is a secret military buildup in the Arias system that the Central Command itself doesn't know about, and that they're building an invasion fleet. So that's big news. Kira tells him, you're not a good terrorist. Your heart's not in it. You should be attacking things right and left with this ship, but he's only interested in intelligence. She would have blown stuff up everywhere around, but he's trying to be a hero. And terrorists don't get to be heroes, which I thought was a really interesting line. Mm-hmm. So, and I also think the definition of terrorist is a little different now than it was in 1994. Yeah. That's obviously a much bigger thing, because as a resistance fighter, as somebody fighting, being an occupied force, it's not quite the same thing as random killings. Anyway, let's
just say that
much bigger.
when they read through the draft, there wasn't as much scrutiny on that word as there would have been at today's pass.
Well, no, yeah, I mean this is pre 9/11, so we had a completely different concept of this. So, but of course, every, the definition, the label of terrorist versus freedom fighter is thrown out by whichever side you're on in countless conflicts in all of history. So, anyway.
I always thought that's what you just said is sort of the point of the Maquis, is to draw that question of, are they good, are they bad? But I think it's a clearer distinction with the Bajorans, and with Kira's storyline is a better, that's a better analogy.
I mean, she was like basically the equivalent of the French resistance in World War II, where like they're the good guys, plain and simple, and that's it's interesting. Anyway, we will continue to debate all of that as we move forward, and of course we're setting up the premiere of Voyager in a couple of weeks, where, spoiler alert, half of the crew on Voyager are ex-Maquis members. So we have to find a way to make that okay.
What they never make very clear in this is how how Tom got involved with any of this.
Well, they do give us a little bit of backstory that he was on his ship, got involved with some stuff, had some disciplinary issues, like he got wrapped up in it. Okay. And then, obviously, understandably, coming from an angry place, a place of feeling taken advantage of, being screwed by life and situations, and looking to root for the underdog, feeling like the underdog. I mean, not even like the underdog to your older brother, to your freaking self. So
all right, you know what? All right, yeah, okay, that works.
Psychologically, he's the type of person who would hop onto something like that. Right. That makes sense to me. So on Cardassia, Sisko has figured out that the Defiant has been leading ships away from the Orias sector.
Classic.
Dukat doesn't understand why. It's supposed to be uninhabited, but the Obsidian Overseer sure does. She stops them from sending any ships into the system. It's under the control of the Obsidian Order, and they're not allowed to go there. And if you send a ship there, we'll destroy it.
Yep.
In Act 5, one of the Cardassian ships has detected the neutrino leak. They might have found the Defiant, and they're going to make a run for the Orias system. All the other Cardassian ships chase them to discover several new Cardassian warships come out of the blue unexpectedly. Turns out they're secret Obsidian Order ships, despite being forbidden from having military equipment of any kind. So the Obsidian Order going rogue. Kira tries to talk Riker out of fighting them all, and if they try to fight them all, they'll die. But Riker says, "I'm not my brother, damn it." Or myself. Not brother. I'm not myself. Man, therapy bills. Sisko quietly entices Dukat with a deal. We'll give you the sensor logs of the Orias system. Basically, Dukat a deal with the Cardassian military. If you allow them all to surrender to the Federation. Dukat says, I do want the information. The military definitely wants to know what the Obsidian Order's up to, but somebody has to pay for it, and I don't want it to be me. So Dukat agrees to hand over everything except for Riker. Sisko reluctantly agrees on the condition that the sentence be something other than death. But before any of that can happen, the Defiant decloaks and opens fire. They battle the Cardassians and disable the first ship when 3 more cruisers show up. So we get some pretty cool upgraded pew-pews here, which I thought looked great. The Defiant's shooting stuff is... I think at this point, this is when we've switched the digital model, which allows us to move the ship much faster and in much different ways.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, especially for 94. We're getting there. There's still more improvements to come, but that certainly was a very upgraded battle scene than what we've been used to up to this point. They get a message from Dukat and Sisko, and they tell Riker to surrender. He can turn himself in and serve out the rest of his life in a Cardassian labor camp. Yikes. Kira tries to talk him into it. The mission is over. You've accomplished what you needed to accomplish, exposing the Obsidian Order fleet. you don't need to go out in a blaze of glory.
Was that what his intent was, though? To expose that fleet? Okay.
Yeah. They had the intelligence that the Obsidian Order was building a fleet, and they were. The whole point of this was to get the Cardassian military and the Federation to know that that's happening.
I don't know if it was my paying attention or just the pacing, and maybe you could let me know because I was in a different mind space. But the reveal of the Obsidian Order secret fleet to Dukat was much more apparent and effective to me than that being the plan of Tom, because I just kind of didn't catch that as much, and it was more interesting on that side anyway.
Well, yeah, because what's interesting about it is the implications of that. It's not as much. I think it is clear that the Maquis' goal is to expose this fleet, and that's why he's drawing people away. He's trying to get to that sector.
So that is pretty altruistic in a.
Yeah, no, it is heroic because it is. It's probably good that we know that that's happening.
And he did, of course, kidnap a crew member and steal our ship. So it isn't like I don't want to pat him on the back too hard.
Well, I mean, and that is the Maquis. Like you do some wrongs to make a greater right for the greater good. I don't know, hard to say. But anyway. So Tom agrees to the terms.
Couldn't he have just leaked the papers?
Well,
the Pentagon papers?
They needed to prove it.
Okay.
We don't know that we can trust the Maquis' intelligence. So Tom agrees to terms. Sisko says you need to surrender to the ships behind you, not in front of you, and they'll protect you. And Riker agrees. And he's being chased by the Obsidian Order ships, and they're faster and more powerful than any ships Dukat has seen. Uh-oh. The Defiant goes into the protection of Dukat's ship. And Riker sends the sensor logs and hands command over to Kira. She promises to rescue Tom someday, and he kisses her without asking if that's okay, and for reasons beyond my understanding, other than 90s television, she swoons instead of slapping him. Then he beams away. Ooh, good screenshot. And the Defiant pieces out for home.
Still can't figure out what is on that man's head. Somehow something either on the digital film or that was messed up in the AI upscale or on my capture. I just can't figure it out.
I feel like it's a remnant on the film itself, isn't it?
It's gotta be. That's what it looks like.
That the AI was like, oh, that's a cool thing, and then brought it to the forefront.
Yep.
Because he didn't have that in the rest of the episode.
No, I thought also it might be like our overlay, but it's not. It's definitely
it's not
the film. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's a good question. So that is the end of our episode. I think we've both mentioned that him kissing her at the end is gross and weird and not handled great. But beyond that. Let us do a little vocab quiz. And now it's time for Mike and Deglio's Star Trek Vocabulary Quiz. Mike, I want to know what it is and what you use it for. A proton beam.
A proton beam is like a beam of protons, Keith, that you'd use to shoot something.
It's how you detect the cloaked Defiant.
Yeah, that's it, because it bounced back. It's like sonar. It's like bats know where fruit is. Okay.
Yeah, sure, yes, it's fruits. And, Mike, what's a neutrino?
Oh, neutrino is a thing, Keith, that gives a very distinct signature. And so you can tell when things are leaking, you can tell when things are hiding, you can tell when things are flooding, the whole deal. You need a neutrino signature detector.
Sure. Yeah, the neutrinos are part of the cloaking device.
Yes.
And when it's leaking, that is a different way to detect the cloak.
Females are, you refer to that as a neutrino.
The female neutrinos are neutrinos? Yeah. Okay, good. I was terrified where that was going. That could have been much worse. Let's move along home, shall we?
2, 3, 4, AllamaEmmies! 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Okay. Let us talk about any possible wormholes in the plot.
Okay, well, I mentioned my concern about the security, so, and we kind of dealt with that. And also, I guess my just kind of general, I don't have any specifics, but my general, the motivations for everyone for Tom seemed suspect to me until Keith made that clear about 3 minutes ago. So I'm feeling better about it. In fact, one of the strengths of this episode for me is just how airtight I feel like the tentative treaty, if you will, that we established, the deal we make at the end of the episode is. I think it's not great for anybody, but it is also just enough for everybody, and it takes a little bit of trust from both sides. So I really liked it. The only question I have is tactically, it seems to me like Ben and Dukat are making this deal in earshot of the Obsidian Order overseer. You would think that maybe, or I don't know what her agency is. So I thought that she was going to attempt to foil that deal because it doesn't particularly help Obsidian Order in any way, unless they're just very confident. Maybe they've got a second Death Star, and they've got like. It just seemed like she allowed that to happen in earshot. That was the only lasting kind of confusion I had.
Yeah, I don't think she was. I think she was in the room. I don't know if she was necessarily in earshot of that conversation.
They were on screen offering the deal.
Oh, well, later, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that the Obsidian Order is in a tough position, right? Because they're getting caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And the minute one of their ships is seen, the cat's kind of out of the bag at that point. And I don't think she would have a believable reason to shut it down without exposing the thing in the first place. Because as soon as she's shutting down, I mean, she kind of cat's out of the bag when she says the Obsidian Order is in control of that space, and if you go there, we're going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to follow up on that. Like, there's no way they're just going to like, okay. So whether or not the cat comes out of the bag quickly or slowly, I think that was sort of that it was a fait accompli. And she was sort of in a disadvantage there because her objective, which was to keep this secret, had already gone out the window.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, hear it.
The only wormhole I have is the question that we have asked all of you is like, what's going on with Riker and O'Brien? What did that mean?
Weird. And they hit it so hard, you know?
They totally hit it hard. Maybe I'm just forgetting something. I could easily just be forgetting something. So, smarter people answer my questions. Let's talk about our best moment.
I just mentioned it. I think the scene where Dukat and Sisko are going back and forth and hashing out the terms of this agreement to have him surrender, and also he has to, because we saw in a previous episode, he has to, that generally death is the sentence and it's predetermined. So Sisko has to, generally Federation-based folk would be like, no, we need a fair trial. We need this. We know that. He knows it's not going to be fair. He knows that it's predetermined. So Ben, as part of his deal, has to offer the sentence and work backwards.
Just don't kill him.
Yeah, and he's also giving up logs, which I'm sure the Federation wouldn't be pretty. I keep saying Federation. Am I right when I'm saying this? Yes.
Yeah, Federation.
Wouldn't be great about Ben giving. It's so good, and once again, confidence. So much of it relies on things we have learned previously, and we don't do a lot of rehashing. Yes, they have to recap the Tom,
the Riker story.
The Riker story, but they don't go over the Obsidian Order. They don't go over any of the stuff we did with Dukat before. You're either in or you're out, and I think that's so baller. And it really, I even felt, here I am, season 3, 20 years later, I felt rewarded for watching every week.
You felt complimented for knowing it.
Yes, and so that is awesome, and I'm invested, and this is one of those episodes where I haven't felt like, actually, in this season, since the first 1 or 2 episodes, really curious as to what's next.
In the big picture.
Yeah. I have to say, I love all of the side episodes. I'm loving the different stuff we're doing. I love the tonality shifts. Like, I'm really excited about some more of the musical and different stuff coming up that we've teased or that I've extracted or inferred from some of the toys we've looked at and stuff. But right now, I'm just super invested in the overarching plot line. When are we getting back to the Founders? When are we getting back, like, what's going on with the Obsidian Order? All of that's really cool to me. Just the name alone. So anyway, that scene for me actually symbolized my sort of what I'm loving about the show right now. So I think that's why I'm picking that moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's I agree with you on all of that. I'm gonna agree. Just a slight modification for me. It's gonna be the Dukat story about his son.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing because
he's so good. Alamo is so he's approaching Avery Brooks in my favorite right now.
Yeah, he's always watchable. He's always
and
fun.
Avery Brooks and him are both. You could absolutely play both of those characters very stock and very just the way people would expect it, but Ben, obviously, with the line readings and with the way he just hits different things and sometimes it's really casual and flippant about really serious things, and those are all calculated. And Mark Alamo, I feel like, brings so much more quirk and just personality comedy to very dark, almost bad guy stuff. And it's such a small needle to thread. I can't. Go ahead.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. In Sisko, the salt that is the seasoning is his aggression, is his darkness, right? That's the salt that gives flavoring to his kind, nice dad, good boss, good leader. But there's a little bit of dark in him. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of like, ooh. Right? That's the salt. In Dukat, the salt is vulnerability against his megalomaniacal bad guy Cardassian-ness. There's just a little bit of seasoning of vulnerability there that raises the stake in both of them.
Yeah, so when you put them together, right?
Put them together.
You got a surf and turf.
They're two sides of the opposite sides of the same coin. Right? They're both complex. They both have dark and light, and it's like there's a meme out there that it's just like in Sisko is there is always darkness and light, and Dukat is there is always light and darkness, and I think that is just awesome to see them together. All right, let's give out a certain type of stem bolt, shall we?
That's why I wasn't there.
You get some stem. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
Oh, yeah. Really, it's the best way to bring it home. All right, so, it wasn't really that action heavy. I thought there wasn't a ton of suspense in the kidnapping of the ship or Kira, but what I love about this episode, and I hope that this translates, was that it felt to me much like reading a really great thriller novel, right? That a lot of the suspense came from the machinations of that deal we just worked out, and how these two and how everyone once again is playing everyone against one another. You've got Ben, who is willing to expose some secrets about their weapon, but try not to do it too much, and also get something out of the deal, like squeeze some sort of benefit for them out of the deal. You've got Dukat, who is learning about the Obsidian Order, but can't quite get the foothold over them because they are operating independently, yet but also with one another, but against one another, which is a really cool dynamic. The Grand Inquisitor or the Observer is really interesting and ominous, but yet we don't quite know what her agency is. She says that those ships will attack, but it's not like she's giving the order, so it's all, and we don't actually see any of the Obsidian Order. We've met them before, but we don't see how they're acting here. And a lot of the tactical stuff is happening on a very, like, 1994 digital screen setup, so we're not seeing any of that. And so it would sound like a knock, right? Well, it's a TV, show it to me. But there's something about not seeing it, and about it all being fed to us through these two amazing actors and two amazing characters, and they're, once again, being two little fish in this sea of potential war, trying to hash out the thread of safety. And I can't explain to you. I wish I could. That's what I have a podcast, and I can't. Why that is so interesting to me, but it is. And to be frank, I thought the weird chemistry between them that they were trying to build, that plot line, whatever, whether good
between
or
Kira and Riker.
Yeah, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm completely indifferent about it. Added nothing but weird moments for me. The kiss thing at the end. We wouldn't have to spend that much time on it. It's weird, unnecessary, and the only thing I thought was that, oh, well, this is like leaving the opportunity for the writers to maybe do a Prison Break episode if they want further down the road. Maybe not. I guess they'll see how it tests. So yeah, it's not the most action-packed. It's not the most consequential, and it's not the most character-driven. I don't learn a ton about them. We learn a lot about Tom Riker, I guess, but I don't know that we ever see him again, so I don't know if it matters. But we learn about Dukat, we learn about Ben. They're, despite themselves, developing a relationship, right?
Yep.
But also, whilst they're still building that relationship, that one little beat that we only mentioned in passing, when the Obsidian Observer puts a dig at Ben, or at Dukat through Ben by complimenting Ben's strategic prowess, you see close-up of Dukat potentially being a little jealous, and jealousy in a narcissist can be very dangerous. And so we're planting seeds there
and
of
embarrassed in front of his buddy who he wants to impress, his buddy for Zeri.
So as much as I'm like, yeah, I want them to buddy cop because I love but you also see, we're building what could be a huge conflict. So all of that is that is superb storytelling. And once again, I know in the landscape of 1990s television, ballsy, because planning long character and plot arcs on an episodic show is not something that was getting done. So for all of those reasons and more, this crosses for me, Keith, and maybe I have no idea if I'm on an island or not. It crosses into the 90 threshold, and I'm going 91.5.
91.5.
I'm very high on this episode.
Fabulous. Well, I mean, I hope it's not too much of a spoiler, but might we get mostly a two-hander between the two of them marooned somewhere someday for some reason?
That'd be so good.
Yeah, just might happen. So, yeah, I mean, I really like this episode too. I think I love the reveal. I always remember the reveal. It makes sense to me. It's fun. It's exciting. Stealing Defiant, that's exciting. Like, what are the consequences? All of that's great. Everything you just said, I totally agree with. It's a very enjoyable episode. And you know, this episode's kind of a take on the Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
And which is a great classic exciting tale of somebody goes rogue and between two superpowers and that could blow up the whole, start World War III. How do you team up to try to protect the world? So I think that's, great, fun stakes. And, you know, I don't want to like give away too much, but like, are we going to follow up on some of this? Yeah, maybe we will. You know, obviously we're laying some track for some pretty consequential stuff to happen moving forward. So that's really fun. It's really fun. It's an enjoyable episode. I'm gonna give it 88 self-sealing stem bolts.
Question for you, as a writer,
Yes.
as sort of a thought experiment. One other thing I felt like let the episode down a little bit is, yeah, Kira had a couple of conversations with Tom about you should be more of a terrorist, and here you should be more of a captain. But regardless, I feel like even absent those conversations, those heart-to-hearts, and I understand Kira's use because of her past and why her advice
and her objective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. However, I feel like even if you extract that from the episode, Riker would have made it, when presented with the same ultimatum by Dukat and Ben, would have made the same decision. So I don't really know the agency that Kira had in the outcome. Is there a way to have made it more impactful?
Well, I think, I mean, her objective there is to talk him out of going out in a blaze of glory. Right? It's at that last second there where, like, he's cornered by a million ships. From his point of view, he's probably thinking, I'm going to be executed. Like whatever the outcome of this, I'm going to die. He doesn't really know that Sisko has given him a chance at life. But also, the deal that Sisko made, he's in a Cardassian labor camp for the rest of his life. Like, is that a lot better than going out in a blaze of glory? I don't know that it is.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think she's basically there reminding him who he is, and that having accomplished his greater good, exposing the Obsidian Order fleet, that he doesn't need to go out in a blaze of glory to distinguish himself from William.
Yeah.
To get a page in the history book that would, like his alternate version is famous, successful, got the girl. Part of him might want to go out in a blaze of glory, become a piece of history, like, I know Commander Riker, but Thomas Riker, he went out, blah, 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 blah. He's much more consequential. This makes him a little bit more anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her agency is convincing him not to go out in a ball of fire.
Okay.
And so I think, to answer your question, I think, yes, there could have been a better way to make that the thread going all the way through. To make Tom, I think the way I would have done it is I would have made Tom Riker's plan to somehow make it apparent that his plan is this is a suicide run. And I want to go out and make the biggest statement I can, make the biggest explosion. I want to expose this fleet, but I want to make a statement to the world, to the universe. And this is a one-way mission. I know it, and I'm excited about it. This is my plan. This is how I distinguish myself. And then her talking him out of that more explicitly would be how I would do that. So there it is. So next week we are talking about fascination. Hopefully it will be interesting. So we'll see you back here next week. Check out our other shows. Look at my Star Trek toys, K&M Geekly. We will be reviewing that there figure on Saturday, the first of the Prodigy 2023 figures. Also, we'll be coming out soon with Strange New Show, this version for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Don't miss it. All of our social medias are below. You can also get the podcast-only version of all of these shows in your podcasting service of choice. Give us a rating and review. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Tell a friend. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/KNM.
Do you have a comment you want read on air?
Yes.
Super chat below. Leave as much as I think it's the $2 minimum. We'll get your comment read on air as long as it's audience friendly. You know what? We got to put that disclaimer there. Not that we've got. Let's just leave it there. But thanks for watching. We appreciate everybody, and thanks for cheering Keith up today. Appreciate you.
For sure. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.